One of the better ways to make money within GTA Online is by going through the agency. This was an update that was released a few years ago, but it's still a relatively good way in order for you to make money, as well as also tying on some pretty decent missions. So in this video, we are going to be going through the most efficient way in which you can be going through the contract DLC. Now, as said, this was released December 15th, 2021. And since then, it's had a few updates, which has allowed it to either be more efficient or in some cases nerfed. And to begin with, in order for you to start this, you need to buy into one of the locations, in which there's 4, all varying between 2 million up to around about 2.8 million. Generally though, the location for all of these doesn't really matter. They're all going to be providing you the exact same content, but Haywick is slightly more efficient as it's closer for some of the security missions. But whether or not you want to pay an extra 800,000 compared to Haywick, to the cheapest, is entirely up to you, and it's only just so that you can be slightly more efficient for some of the missions. On top of all of this, you then have your upgrades, in which you can buy art, which costs 340,000, wallpaper, which is 440,000, highlights, which are 100,000, armory 720,000, accommodation 275,000, and vehicle workshop, which is 800,000. But with all of these upgrades, they're not really required. Certain features such as your armory and vehicle workshop for purchasing snacks and weapons may be useful for some players, but typically it's always best to avoid the cosmetic upgrades. Now, let's actually get into the mission side of things. Firstly, we have the contracts. The contracts are the main part of the agency, and there are 2 types. You have security contracts and VIP contracts. Let's first start off with security contracts. You can go through these at any time, and they appear in random order. At any given time, only 3 different security contracts are visible, and you can select what one you want and then finish it, with there also being a 5-minute cooldown after every single one that you do complete. You do this by going to the computer in your office, you select from 3 available contracts at the time. The 3 that you can choose will include a random mission type and a random difficulty. If you are going into this, it makes sense for you to be fully loaded. We're talking armor, having snacks, and also having pretty decent weapons, as well as appropriate vehicles. Some of these can be challenging as it is random difficulty, and some are better designed for those to have multiple people, which is also an option that you can have. You can go into these with up to 4 players. There are several different mission types. You'll have asset protection. This is where you protect various assets for 10 minutes. Gang termination, fight off gang members in their hideouts. Liquidize assets, use explosives to obliterate rival goods. Recover valuables, retrieve items from a safe locker, rescue operation, find a client within a search zone, vehicle recovery, which will require you to take back a stolen vehicle from a rival gang. Out of all of these, if you're trying to do this solo, I think probably the worst ones that you'll have to do is recover valuables. Not because it's hard, but you will need to unlock a safe to do so, and whilst you're unlocking a safe, that is when more enemies will spawn in. And it isn't really a quick system for you to quickly change dials on the safe and back out for you to take down enemies before heading back to it. It's very slow, so you need one person on the safe, and then even if it's just one other player, they're then able to defend you. This can be real difficult depending on the difficulty, in which there's free, professional, specialist, and specialist plus. The payouts that you receive after completing a contract on this selected difficulty will give you a higher amount. For example, with professional, you'll get anywhere between 31,000 to 42,000. With specialist, you'll get anywhere between 44,000 to 56,000. And then specialist plus, you'll get anywhere between 60,000 to 70,000. Of course, this becomes very rewarding if you are able to go through these quickly with multiple players, and you're able to complete on specialist plus. For a lot of them, you're gonna get a very good amount of money. You can then also get bonuses on top of this depending on the number of missions you complete. You will unlock vehicle trade prices, increase the daily safe income, earn an extra 5,000 for your MC club members, or increase the living wage of bodyguards and business associates. But these are just one-off missions. You go, complete them, get the money, and eventually it doesn't take long for you to keep on doing the exact same thing over and over again. But the VIP contracts, are slightly different. This actually involves you helping Dr. Dre recover his stolen music by teaming up with Franklin to recover it. These are the main story missions for the DLC. To start these VIP contracts, you must complete 2 of the previous security contracts, and then Franklin will give you a call. That's when you'll have a small session of golf with Franklin, Dr. Dre, and his associates, and it lays out the beginning of the story. From there, you will have multiple missions following this, I believe 13 in total, with each of these being broken down into somewhat chapters. You'll have your first 2 initial missions, then you'll have the Nightlife League, which involves another 3 missions, the High Society League, which involves another 3 missions, the South Central League, which gives you another 3 missions, and then finally, you do have another 2 missions just to end all of this. Completing these missions, of course, are the main story missions, so you will see notable characters, Franklin and Lamar, as well as, of course, Dr. Dre. Most people don't really care about the content itself, they're mainly here for payout. Depending on whether or not you play this for your first time or replay this, will depend on how long it takes and also how much money you're able to get. It'll take 15 to 20 minutes to finish each mission. The entire contract can be completed in total for about 2, maybe 3 hours if you are a slow player such as myself. If you're a better player than me, which isn't difficult, you could probably complete this a bit quicker. After the final mission, the host will be awarded $1 million. Additionally, the setup missions will also pay $10,000 per each mission you complete. This means with 10-13 missions, you're going to get an extra 100,000, 130,000 on top, taking you to 1.1 million. But unlike what normally happens with a lot of Rockstar titles as well as DLCs, whether that be through GTA and Red Dead, when you go through the main missions for the first time, you normally get a first time bonus. And then once you go and replay it, unfortunately, you get a fraction of the amount. That's not the case with the agency DLC. That's just not going to happen. Instead, you're going to be getting the full amount as long as you do go all the way back through and complete everything to the end. You get this every single time that you complete the whole VIP contracts. And whilst doing everything that we've mentioned, we're talking security contracts and the VIP contracts, there is also a way to earn the passive income, which is normally applied to every single DLC that Rockstar adds. This is with a save. The agency does feature a save, and it's allocated right at the back of the office, and will be automatically filled with small amounts of cash every 48 minutes or 1 GTA Online day. It does start out small, but it will increase by doing more security contracts. For every 5 contracts you complete, the income will grow by $500. The maximum amount of money that you can generate from this is 20,000 every 48 minutes. Which does mean, if you do the maths, you will need to complete 200 security contracts in total to acquire this much amount of money. But at the exact same time, it's not just you being able to build $500 after completing 5 security contracts, because the security contracts themselves do pay. So yes, it's going to take 200 missions in order for you to max this out, but on top of that, because you've completed 200 missions, even if we're looking at the lowest possible payout of 30,000, you'll still have $6 million after completing all 200. And that is on the lower end. If you're going to be getting some of those more difficult missions with the specialist or specialist plus difficulty, this can double, taking you up to 12 million. But of course, 200 missions itself isn't going to be done anytime soon, especially if you are just starting out with this. But it is something that you can gradually push towards. And finally, with this, you also have the ability to phone Franklin for assassination contracts. You're able to do these occasionally when just traveling around. If all of a sudden a nearby payphone starts to ring, that will be a dynamic event, and Franklin has an assassination mission which you can accept. Likewise, if you do want to go and do these as soon as they're available, instead of waiting by a payphone or just traveling around hoping that one would start ringing, you can phone Franklin and ask for an assassination contract, which it'll locate to the nearest payphone. These missions are actually pretty fun, and they're also rewarding. You can get up to $85,000, which literally takes about 5 minutes to do, as long as you do complete it with the optional objectives. If you don't, you're going to be getting slightly less, but it is still worth it. And to be honest, the optional objectives, it does make the missions more fun. It does take a bit more time, but as said, Overall, these missions can be completed within just mere minutes, so it's really not too big in the grand scheme of things. Overall, the agency, it's still worth going through. It's still worth going through in 2023 and probably will be worth going through in the future. It's not the highest paying content within the game, but it's still relatively good, especially considering you're able to be rewarded quite decently for going through main story missions, which normally isn't the case. And as you are going through the main story missions, there's nothing really stopping you profiting from this type of content while setting up some of the other businesses within the game that can just run in the background. So you set them up, go through the agency, go and claim your $1 million after completing all 30 missions, which will take you a couple hours, but then you can actually spend the time going back through all of those previous businesses that you set up just to do sell deliveries and make even more money on top. If you enjoyed this video, then I highly recommend clicking the next video on screen right now. That video will give you the ultimate beginner's guide to starting GTA Online as of present day. This isn't an old tutorial, it is relevant right now. So click that video and I'll be over there to guide you through absolutely everything.